Okay, so when I was younger, I was able to play some games on the old NES, also known as the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, I didn't buy these torturous piles of misleading junk. I have my big brother who collected old video games to thank for that. I don't know where he got these games, and I never asked, but all I know is he would show up randomly someday, and he would have another game. And I'd be like, alright, time to stay up all night trying to beat this one. So we didn't always have the best games, and some of the games were just downright trash. But whatever, some of them were still fun, even if they were so hard you basically had to remember the entire game just to get through it. Like Super C. There's no way you're gonna get through this game the first time without dying. Ah! Urgh! Ah, damn it! What the hell was that? How the hell did they do that? Wait, where'd you even come from? But first, let me tell you about this brick of a controller. This thing was so awkward to hold for any length of time for my little kid hands. Like, seriously, why was it made this way? So I would always find myself getting hand cramps, and I'd be putting this thing on my lap. I don't care. I'd be putting it on the table. Hell, I don't care. I'd put this thing on the dog's backside if it means I could get through another level without getting any hand cramps. Oh well, I guess that's just what happens when you're a little kid and you haven't built up any strength in your hands yet. We all can't be as strong as Mario. I mean, look at this guy. This guy is super strong. Right down to the very tip of his toes. Whoa, look at this guy. That's a strong boy right there. Now, these controllers only had 2 buttons and the D-pad. So, basically, everything in the game was a combination of these. Sounds easy, right? Yeah, no. Only some of these games got it right. Like Double Dragon. One button is for punch, the other one's for kick, and the two of them together are jump kick. But then some games were a steamy pile of doggy dookie, where the controls were just the worst. Seriously, Conan, what were they thinking? Like when you're trying to pick up items and you have to press the buttons in all kind of cockamamie messed up ways to the point that you just want to throw this game off a cliff? And why the hell are these power adapters so big? Like, they take up so much space. They basically defeat the purpose of a power splitter. These power adapters are so big that when you put them into the power splitter, they basically take up all the space anyway. So why even get them? But I guess they would be pretty efficient if you were going to swing them around your head like a ballast. Now let's look at this console. This thing was so different than anything before it. Maybe it was ahead of its time, or maybe it was just a complete rip-off of a VCR. You know those old VCRs that were popular when this thing came out? They are so boxy. Like, this thing is so boxy, it's like a brick. Seriously, if you have enough of them, you could just make a wall to keep all the haters out. This thing was so annoying to load. Like, you would put the game in, and if it was a new game, or it was like not used very much, so it was like a really tight fit, and then you had to push in and then a little hard. So then I'd go to take it out, and I got no strength in my little kid fingers, and seriously, my little kid fingers would always be messy. I'd be eating stuff when I'll be playing games like popcorn, which would be great for sliding my fingers across the controllers real fast. Pop, 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 pop. But then when it comes time to like pinch that game and pull it out of there, why? Why does it have to be so hard? So since my brother got all these games secondhand, then some of them came with cases and some of them didn't. So the games that came with cases, like, they seemed to work a lot better than the ones that just sat around. Since I grew up in a poor house, we took care of the things we had. But at the same time, we didn't just go out and buy new cases all the time. That cost money. So when one game was finished being played, it went right back in the case. And basically, if I didn't do that, my brother would flip his shit. Hey man, how many times I gotta tell you to put the game back in the case? You put your dick back in your pants after you're done using that. Now put the game back in the case after you're done using it. So these games that sat around without a case, they didn't work as well. So we would try everything, like trying to blow the dust off the pins, but really, we were making the problem worse, because all we were doing was blowing hot-ass humid air on the pins, making them corrode even faster. Seriously, the difference between a game that sits in a case and the one that sits around, look at this. The corrosion is so bad. Just look at this slimy piece of worm-ridden filth. No wonder they didn't work. All you get is that dreaded NES blank. The suspense. Is it gonna work? It's like a gamble every time with these corroded games. Not gonna work. Try this again. Okay, take it out and blow some more hot-ass humid air on it. But later I found out that all we had to do was clean the pins with rubbing alcohol, and that would get all the corrosion off. And then, of course, we had to keep them in a dry place, like like a box or something like that. So once you finally get these games to work, you can start becoming socially distant and losing sleep over them. Like The Legend of Zelda 2. This stupid, short-circuited mess of a game is to follow up such a good game on the NES? How do you go from one game, which I find is actually playable, to this pile of cat vomit? Seriously, what were they thinking? Now, I never played this game in a while, but what I remember from this game is... what the hell do I do next? Why is this game harder than a banana in rice constipated shit right from the beginning? One thing I remember about this game, more than all the other bullshit, is why the flying fuck do I have to start back at the very beginning when I die? It wasn't like that in Zelda 1, so why is it like that in Zelda 2? How do you go from Zelda 1 to Zelda 2 and then remove a feature like that? Oh, but then it's available in the last level! You're telling me that feature was available this whole time, but the programmers just didn't included in all the other levels? Seriously! What were they thinking? Whatever. Just consider yourself warned that this game is a steaming pile of dog shit compared to the first one. But then there is Super Mario Bros. This game will go down in history as a benchmark for all other side-scrollers to be compared to. There has been countless hours being played on this game because it has such a nice range of enemies, stages, and there's a really nice warp system set up to get back to the levels that you want to play on. Although a save system would have been nice, but whatever. It's a product of its time. Now, I didn't find it until recently. If you get a game over, and then you hold the jump button when you see game over, and then you hold that button all the way until the cover screen appears, and then you hit start, you'll actually go back to the world that you were on when you died. So, if you didn't know that, you're welcome. As far as Super Mario goes, I just love the mushrooms and how they look like Goombas. I love how the bushes look like the clouds, and even though some of the levels were reused, they were actually made harder the second time they were used. Now, this is how you get the best out of a limited system. But that's kind of like what Nintendo was known for, is that time and time again, they were being a trendsetter in the gaming industry. Now, I know this is a video about the NES, but for example of how Nintendo has been able to do more with less, is if we look at the Super NES, and that's a 16-bit system. Now, on this system, there was the game Donkey Kong Country. It was released in 1994, and it has fantastic gameplay, great range of enemies, you know, all the levels. I think they were well done, and the controls are great. The music, oh, fantastic game. Seriously, if you've never played this game, then I strongly suggest checking it out, or at least check out the soundtrack. Simply amazing. How Nintendo was able to make a game like this on a 16-bit system is beyond my understanding. Now, if you look at Nintendo's competition in 1994, we can see that Sega released the Sega Saturn, and that was a 32-bit system, so more bits is better, right? Well, no, not exactly. The Sega Saturn sounded bad, it played horrible, and overall, it was a diaper-filled dumpster fire. But that's a story for